Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into something absolutely massive. We're unpacking the origins of the universe, intrinsic human value, and this incredibly vital concept of rest, all found right at the beginning of the Genesis text. Whether you've grown up reading these passages or you're looking at them today with fresh eyes, this source material offers a really rich, structured commentary that goes way, way beyond just a simple ancient narrative. As you'll see, we're going to explore how it addresses the human condition in a way that is literally just as relevant to us today as it was back then. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, the origin of everything. Second, the 6 days of creation. Third, the image of God. Fourth, rethinking earthly stewardship. And finally, the principle of rest. Let's start right at the beginning with Section 1, the origin of everything. Now, before we even get deep into the text, we kind of have to acknowledge the big elephant in the room, right? I'm talking about the relationship between the biblical text and modern science. It's basically the filter through which almost everyone in the modern era reads these opening chapters. But our source text provides this super powerful, clarifying quote right out of the gate. The world is not a product of blind chance and probability. God created it. You see, the commentary points out that the biblical worldview inherently assumes a creator. It doesn't open with this long philosophical argument to prove God exists. It just introduces him in action. So what you really need to take away here is that the text focuses on the who and the why of creation. It's giving us a theological foundation of purpose, not a mechanical, scientific textbook explanation of exactly how the cosmos was engineered. And, when it comes to the timeline itself, the commentary is actually refreshingly impartial. It notes that really committed, sincere students of the text have actually come to completely differing conclusions. Some look at each day of creation as a literal 24-hour period, but others, they view each day as an indefinite period of time. We're talking potentially spanning millions of years. The notes here emphasize that the text itself actually leaves room for both interpretations. The word day can be used in a few different ways, so the most important aspect of this whole discussion isn't necessarily how long the clock was ticking, but the origin itself. And that brings us to this incredibly clarifying summary. The commentary stresses that the biblical view of creation is not inherently in conflict with science. It simply focuses on the origin rather than the scientific process. The Bible deliberately avoids making scientific claims it wasn't designed to make. Actually, if you look at Genesis 1:2, it describes the early earth as formless and empty. So the rest of the narrative? It's all about God bringing magnificent order and purpose to that chaos. It's literally about taking a dark, watery deep and transforming it into a beautiful, habitable home. That whole idea of bringing order to chaos leads us perfectly into Section 2, the 6 days of creation. And this brilliantly illustrates the architectural genius of the narrative. I mean, look at the symmetry here. It's like a giant puzzle coming perfectly together. Days 1 through 3 are entirely about forming the environments. Day 1 separates light and dark. Day 2 separates sky and water. Day 3 separates land and sea. But then notice how the narrative shifts. Days 4 through 6 are all about filling those exact environments. The light and dark of day 1 are filled by the sun, moon, and stars on day 4. The sky and water of day 2, filled by birds and fish on day 5. And the land of day 3 is filled by animals and humanity on day 6. It's this beautiful chronological blueprint of divine engineering. So as the commentary notes, the real question this text answers isn't necessarily how long God took, but exactly how he did it. He did it with meticulous, deliberate order. He didn't make plants before there was light to sustain them, right? Everything was carefully prepared, leading right up to his crowning achievement on day 6, humanity. We were designed as entirely unique beings, distinctly capable of communication and fellowship with the Creator. Which brings us to the absolute climax of the creation narrative. Let's move to section 3, the image of God. Let us make man in our image, in our likeness. The commentary provides a super crucial definition for this iconic phrase. It clarifies that since God has no physical body, this is definitely not about a physical resemblance. Actually, it's a reflection of his supreme nature and character. It's entirely about our internal makeup, our spiritual capacity, and our whole self reflecting the Creator. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the commentary breaks down the specific characteristics that distinguish humans from the rest of the created order. Think about it. We have the capacity for reason, allowing us to think logically. We have creativity, echoing the ultimate creator. We have speech for complex communication. We have self-determination, the ability to make free choices. And perhaps most importantly, we possess character. We have the capacity to reflect love, patience, kindness, and forgiveness. These are the markers of the divine image within every single one of us. And here is why this matters so much for us today. The commentary draws a direct, really powerful application from this text. It argues that true self-worth isn't based on your possessions, your achievements, public acclaim, or physical attractiveness. No, it's based solely on being made in this divine image. This text guarantees intrinsic human value, heavily emphasizing that from the very beginning, both man and woman are made in this image. Neither is exalted over the other, and neither is depreciated. It's a profound declaration of equal inherent worth. It's a real game changer for how we view ourselves and others. But hey, with that immense value comes immense responsibility. Let's transition to section 4. Rethinking earthly stewardship. In Genesis 1:28, God blesses humanity and tells them to rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air and over every living creature. The commentary notes that this is a direct delegation of authority. God, who is described as having ultimate rule over the earth, delegates his authority to the human race to manage it. It's like being handed the keys to a priceless estate. That is a massive, awe-inspiring responsibility placed squarely on our shoulders. So the crucial point is, the commentary fiercely redefines that word rule away from careless domination. Look, throughout history, humans have sometimes taken that to mean exploitation, right? But in this view, exercising authority means doing so with loving care and absolute responsibility. The text calls on humanity to be careful stewards of the planet. We are meant to act as caretakers rather than just consumers, completely avoiding careless wastefulness with the environment and the creatures God declared to be very good. After all that forming, filling, and delegating, we finally reach the end of the creation week. Let's look at section 5, the principle of rest. Genesis 2 tells us that by the seventh day, God had finished his work and he rested. The commentary makes a brilliant observation right here. We live in an incredibly action-oriented world, don't we? There always seems to be something to do, emails to answer, and absolutely no time to rest. But God didn't rest because he was physically exhausted. He rested to model a restorative rhythm for us. He paused to reflect on and actually enjoy the fruits of his labor. The notes remind us that times of rest are not just a nice idea. They are absolutely vital to refresh us for our times of service. Which brings us to our final thought for today. The source text leaves us with a provocative challenge to carry with us. If the narrative depicts the all-powerful creator stepping back to observe a day of rest, to just enjoy what was made, shouldn't we? It really asks us to look at our own lives, our own packed schedules, and consider if we are building in that necessary restorative rest. It's a rhythm presented as being built into the very fabric of the cosmos. So think about that next time you're tempted to keep working on empty. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through the commentary of Genesis 1 and 2. Keep learning, please keep resting, and I will see you on the next explainer.